Hey, what's up? This is LZ Granderson, sports and culture columnist with the Los Angeles Times. And joining me today is one of my favorite people in the whole city, Les Snead, Rams GM. And Les, first of all, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me about the Rams' quick start, 2-0. Congratulations on that. I guess my first question to you would be this. Many people, whether they be in Vegas, whether they're, football aficionados or even fans, all anticipated the Rams being awful this year. The 2-0 start and the way that the 2-0 start came about suggests otherwise. What did all the experts get wrong about you so far?
What's interesting, I do think that those experts, I'll probably begin by going, it is kind of cool to maybe outwit Las Vegas today, right? And again, we're 2 games in and there's still 14 to go. So as we all know, the cliche in sports, right, you can't pop the corks at this point. But I do think in sports, let's call it predetermined off-season narratives are often based on information that everyone has from a previous season, but not necessarily, and it's not the fault of, the people who get to, let's call it create, publish, discuss these narratives, but they may lack some of the information that team insiders have.
It feels as if the departure of Todd Gurley has diversified your running game a little bit. Is that an overstatement of what's happening right now?
Yeah, I think, yes, because with Todd, right, and because he was such a special player, right, you were going to lean on him. You're going to lean on that individual and less on others. Although during his career, and even when he was having, let's call it offensive MVP type season, Malcolm Brown did have some meaningful moments that were very productive, and also some other players like C.J. Anderson who came along when Todd was struggling a little bit there at the end of the 19. But when you have a single player, you're going to usually ride that player. But going back to when Sean was a coordinator in Washington, there was an element of, let's call it we always like to call them 5 eligibles, the skilled players, the weapons who are eligible to get the ball on any given down. But it's speaking specifically of the running back, like the wide receiver group, like the tight end group, there is a case to be made to build a complementary team within that position group's meeting room so that they bring different skill sets to the table at different times.
All eyes are on Jared Goff right now. Can you talk a little bit about what you personally see that's different about Jared Goff this season versus last season?
The quarterback always gets let's call it the microscope right on him, but I do think it takes 10 others. It takes the 5 offensive linemen, the 5 eligibles. And I also think, it takes Sean and his staff. I think that's what we're seeing is, getting back to running the football more, being consistent with that. Obviously, that leads to what we like to term Sean and his staff marrying the run game with the pass game. And simply put, right, that's hopefully when you go to the line of scrimmage, the opposing defenders and defensive coordinator doesn't necessarily know, hey, are we going to run the football or are we going to pass it? And not necessarily just pre-snap, but post-snap too.
I mean, you know how this league works. You certainly know how this league is covered. All criticism and praises start at that QB position, especially through the paradigm of whether or not this is their offense, right? Whether they have command of this offense. Coming into the season, Jared Goff has been kind of haunted by this notion that this is actually Sean McVay making all the right reads and calls, and that Jared Goff is simply just a puppet. Was that fair before? And would you think there's elements of that still right now, or is this Goff's offense?
Well, I think I call it it's Sean and Jared's, and then everyone else's offense too, right? And that's Sean's staff, and obviously the other players who are blocking for Jared and catching and running for Jared. But I just simply I do know this: if anybody gets anything out of this conversation, I think the goal of any organization, anyone, let's say any particular GM or front office, right, is to have a really, really good head football coach, a really, really good offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. But let's just stick the really good coaching staff, mix them with a really good QB and other skill players and let them go do their thing. It's not necessarily the vision to go, okay, let's have a really good quarterback but bad coaching staff and let the quarterback hold up the coaching staff. I don't, that would be the opposite of the narrative of what, Jared's going through. But I do think obviously Sean and his staff deserve credit, as they should be, because they've designed some things, created some things that have become trends of lately that other people are copying in our league. And what we do like in LA is that we feel like we got a really good head coach who happens to be a really good offensive play caller and a really good QB to execute those plays. And that's been our vision and our goal.
You have Buffalo this weekend. Beat them. You go 3-0 for the second consecutive season, which is the good news. The bad news is you were 3-0 last season and you still missed the playoffs. What's going to be different this go-round?
Well, I think speaking of going to Buffalo, give that organization credit, right? They've definitely done a nice job building. They've kind of broken through over the last couple of years, and you feel like they are now built to definitely contend and be a factor. So, there's someone to look at, analyze, study of how to do it right. So that's going to be a tough game, tough opponent, because they're just, I think, like us, well coached, young players mixed with some veterans that are making plays. So that'll be a fun one. I think, again, your great point, starting 3-0 or whatever we do. There's a lot of lessons from last year to apply. And really the best way to apply it is to keep it focused on just Buffalo, because as I just discussed, right, Buffalo's a tough challenge in itself, and then not necessarily focus right now on the rest of the 13 after that. And if we do what we do, if we keep sticking to what we do best, fine-tuning what we do best, obviously adjusting to what the weekly enemy is gonna give us, right, in game and then even after game, because we know that the rest of the opponents will try to copy some of that. You got to stay who you are and stay ahead of the curve. Be disciplined, focus on those moments, and what ends up being a very fast but long 17 weeks will end up taking care of itself.
Obviously, much of the sports world has been trying to find a balance between safety protocols for the coronavirus, managing the season that didn't quite start the way you wanted to as a result, and then obviously the conversations regarding social justice and criminal justice reform. I know those are issues that you in particular are very passionate about. I was just curious as to your thoughts in regards to the Breonna Taylor decision, as well as just where the league is right now as a whole in this conversation.
Well, I think what we have to realize, as you said, right, whether we're in like all of us in sports are going to be focused on like this week's game, this week's moment, this season, the results of those seasons. But that doesn't mean that you're not a citizen of a country that definitely needs to get better, to improve, and it's on us. It's our time to do our part. So it's very hard during these times, right, just to say, okay, we're going to get in our sports silo and just focus on that. I think that would be, that would not be using what our gifts and everyone's passion to enhance humanity. So it's going to be on us to continue to figure out ways, right? Not only to take stands, not only to bring awareness, but right, what action to take. And also I think what's big now in this stage, right, is to persevere, knowing that there's some big things that need to be changed, but usually that type of change doesn't just happen right? It's not, you're going to do it. It's not a game plan where you do it next week on a football field for 4 quarters. It's more of, it's not just the 2020 season, it's 2020, 21, 22, 23. So I think all of us are trying to figure out, in those, what can we do microscopically right now in little chunks? What can we do that is going to make and pay dividends and compound over time, like many of our heroes that we discuss now that are no longer with us on this planet. Those people did things, 15, 20, 30 years ago that have definitely paid dividends. It's compounded, that we all get the benefit from in our generation. Now it's going to be on us to go, okay, we've been given, right, a lot. So it's up to us to take what they started, and many people that I haven't mentioned started, and go from there.
Is it possible for the NFL to be seen as a genuine ally and participant in this conversation that you're talking about, as long as Kaepernick and Reed aren't even invited to camps after speaking out the way that they did?
No, I definitely think it's possible, and I do think I think we're at a point too, and this is probably high-end psychology, but I think if most people sat back right now, the NFL, we've all admitted, hey, what we got right, what we didn't get right, and the best thing and the only thing you can do from that right is admit that. More importantly, probably is hard. What do you apply? How do you apply those lessons and get better? And I think I think if you sat back right now, we probably think that the NFL, along with the NBA and a lot of other sports teams, we're all on the same team here. Doesn't mean we're going to, everything the NFL or the NBA does is going to, let's call it, get 100% acceptance or popularity. But I think it's important for all of us to step back and realize who's on the same team, who's actually trying to do what they can do to enhance humanity like we all want it to be enhanced. And not necessarily at that point, it's called the fighting over the small differences, right? And it happens in families, it happens on teams, right? We're on the same team, but you start fighting amongst yourself a little bit over not just, it's just small differences. So I think right now the answer is yes, but I do get that we're all going to be critiqued, right? As clubs, as individuals, as leagues. But I do think for the most part, as I sit back, especially in rational moments, and it's tough to be rational sometimes when you do see some of these incidents go on. And I think the emotions that they bring definitely fuels the fight for change. But I think at that point, then in some of those rational moments, is go to who's fighting with us and for us, and knowing that you're not going to always be totally aligned in every single detail of the fight, but you definitely know that you have an ally, and it's up to us to try to unite, bring the allies together to make the most of the movement. And, but that's always a tough thing to do in these situations. It has been tough throughout history, and I do think that's the best thing that we can do with history is truly study it, analyze it, be aware, and then apply those lessons, and not just discuss history, but apply the lessons that only history can actually reveal to us.
Wise words, my man. Wise words. Les, thank you very much for your time. Good luck this weekend in Buffalo. Come back with the win. Come back with wings, if you're thinking of me. And good luck.
And if I would have known that we were going to record this, which I did a little later, but I was, again, focused on being selfish, right? Selfish football guy, and focused on whatever was in front of me. But I would have definitely dressed better, because being on a Zoom call right next to you,
you go.
I look unhip. use the word
yeah.
not woke at all. I mean, this is a bad look. But some people though with the glasses have nicknamed them the Kurt Rambis look. So that does have LA.
I will say this. Kurt's glasses had the tape in the middle, so there was an extra nerd factor to them. You bring a little swag to it, so you don't have to worry about it as much.
I don't think I could get rebounds like Kurt or, you know what I mean?